Hello everyone, this is Roger Rosado. I'm on the spatial development team and I am obviously one of the spatial developers. What I'm going to talk about today is security configuration on the map manager. This is a part 2 series. So the prerequisite for this part 2 is obviously, hopefully you went through the part 1 of map manager to get an understanding of what the simple way of configuring Map Manager and making it work. And then that's where we're also going to start off on this part 2. And then the rest is things that I believe you should have some kind of working knowledges. We went through this in part 1. And these are helpful definitions. You've already seen these in part 1. Just put it here for easy access. And again, I just re-displaying the links that would be helpful to you. So basically this is a live demo. So we're gonna configure security for map services. So let's do the live demo here. Okay, we're here in Maximo and we're going to navigate to Map Manager. This Map Manager was developed in part 1. So what we're going to really focus on is map security down here. Specifically the token security authentication. We will talk about the O2 authentication when we talk about web map configuration in another session. So what this does is that obviously enables the token security. One thing I want to mention is in the map manager, if anything is needed for token security, then you must enable this checkbox for any of them. Any map services, also real quickly, just to look at the tabs here, services, the geometry services, the print services, or geocode services. If any of those need a token for security, then you must enable this token security box. Just check it. So the next thing, when we do check it, there's a default username and password. This is similar to 7.51 when you had to go to systems property and enter the username and password. And that is now removed. And what is still left is, let me go there real quickly, is one parameter property. And what it does is a token reset uh, property. What it does is that we set it to 5 minutes. So if all the tokens have a time limit to them, they expire after a certain amount of time. So what this 5 minute means is that if the token security was for 30 minutes, yeah, it's good for 30 minutes. I start asking for a new token in 25 minutes or greater. So I'm not waiting till the last minute to get a token because that helps prevent also race conditions. So I just put 5 minutes here just to have something early enough to ask for a new token. Let's go back to Map Manager. Okay. So another thing about map security, when this is enabled, there will be additional sections that will appear where you can enter a username and password for each individual map services if you need to. So basically this default token username and password is good for anyone who needs a new token if they have the same username and password to get that token, security token. That includes everything also in the in the services section. If geocode or geometry or print export services need a token, then and nothing is defined there, then they can come back. They'll use this one, the default token, username password. Now, what happens is when I do enable this token security, sections will start to pop out here, and it's called token security credentials sections. So what this helps provide is that it lets you configure each individual username and password and retrieve a token security for each individual one of these in case they're on different servers, or they just have their own using token security username and password. Or if they're all the same one, they could always use the default token username and password. So what happens here is in the background, if this is set, we'll use this token username and password. If it's not set, we'll look for the default one and use it to try to get a token, security token from it. So, and the same thing in the services that I showed you before. See, now Geometry Services has token security password section pops up. So does the print export services. Their token username pass pop up. And it's because I did that so that if someone's not using token security, I didn't want this information available for them to clutter up the view. And also in geocode services, if you to press new, you can see the token username and password here. Again, you don't need to fill these out if they are going to use the default username and password of that token security here. So let's go back here. Before we enable this token security, let's save that. When token security is enabled, and I'll show you here what I've done is I went to the ArcGIS Server Manager, and as you can see on the right hand side, there's little locks, and this is locked. So what I did is I configured a user and a role and placed that role in the security of this map service. So I'll demonstrate that real quick. I know this is beyond the scope, but just want you to see. So as you can see, I have a role called spatial, and it's in the private security setting here. So that was, let me go back, sorry. So going to security, here, I created a user, myself, Roger. And in that username password, I gave it what roles I belong to. And I said member of spatial. So the roles is here is obviously where I created the role, which is here. Basically, I have spatial. Spatial is my role, and I put Roger as one of the role members. So that's how I secured this map service. Now going back to Map Manager, when I try to access this water distribution that is now secured, I will get a message, error message, indicating that token security is enabled, and obviously I need to get a token in order to access that map services. And the same thing occurs if I go to the map itself. So let me go to one real quickly. Go to maps. As it starts loading the layers, it would indicate that one of the services is unable to load. And it tells you right here, here's the error message indicating that a token is required for one of the map services. Let's go back to Map Manager. Now again, when I do enable token security, there will be additional sections that will pop out right here when I select it here. And there it goes right here. And again, I want to reiterate that it will, if it's a secure map service, it will use its individual token, username, and password. And if there isn't any or it's invalid, it will try to use the default token, username, and password if there is one. So you don't need to fill this out right here, but it needs to be filled out if one of them, if maybe all of them are secured and they all use the same username and password, then you would do that here. Otherwise, you wouldn't. So let's go and set one up right here. The one I set up before. Saved it. Now I should be able to access, and sure enough I am this time. So what happened at backend is that when I executed this, he used the username and password, went to the server and asked for a token, and I store that token in memory. So what happens here is that I will never ask for another token unless the token expires or you restart your server. Or again, if you somehow manually, you know, uh, get rid of the token in RTS server. So what that means is that the token is valid for a period of time. So if I come here immediately and remove my name here and username and password and save it, I will still be able to access that map services because I don't use the username and password and I already got the token. It's very expensive for time expense to ask for a token every time. The token is good for a certain amount of time, and that's what we use. And again, we shorten that asking for a new token by that parameter in systems properties. So let me put that back in. We don't, in case it does expire, it'll ask for another one during the session. And that's one thing, is that once that you've entered this information in, you should never see anything ever pop up ask for a username and password or a token for that unless it's not populated here for some reason not being used. And what I mean by not being used is that there might be a username and password that's not eligible to get that certain layer map services. Okay, let's save that. Now that we do have a token, we go over here into the map itself, and you should be able to see that the map should load without any errors. And there we go. There's no errors that popped up saying need token. The hydrant and meters there, as you know, when you open the layer section, you can tell the symbols. That's a hydrant and that's a water meter. So that's how I knew what symbol was hydrant, what symbol was meters. Now let's go back to Map Manager. And that's basically it for the security part here, for the token security. Now, one more I want to mention is that the layer section here, service layer here. There's an option name here. This is where we eliminated, if you recall in 7.5, the GIS admin menu, where you kind of add what GIS object you can choose from, and then at the same time, what it does is it sets a security settings in security groups. Well, this is kind of similar to that. And what this is actually a signature option. You would create a signature option here to determine when this hydrant is available to the maximal user. So developing a signature option is out of scope here. You can read up on it in Maximo. But when you do create one, if somehow this becomes true or false, will determine whether this will be usable or not to the user. And I believe that's all about token security. Let's go back to the presentation. Go next. So, okay, so I just want to mention some improvements we did from 7.5 was that we can now, each individual master can have its own token, meaning that it can have its own username and password. And now the default username and password are now located in Map Manager, not in the Maximal Systems properties anymore. The GIS admin configuration menu is removed. And the signature option can be specified for each map service, as you saw. And that's it, guys. I'll see you again soon. Talk to you later.